So, sharing, we put at the top of our abundance pyramid, showing how, and the abundance pyramid again starts with the broad part at the top, but realizing that we have more if we share. That one of the problems that we were looking to crack with things like time banking and other mutual credit complementary currency is that we wanted to get away from the notion that things need to be transactional, that one person has something and another person gets it. So realizing that we have really lost our muscle for sharing, and it's one of the things that we're taught earliest in childhood to really value, and then they spend the rest of the time beating it out of us in various ways. So sharing, first of all, I have come to realize that the most essential element of sharing that our Humans United and mutual aid networks, friends, and relations embody is really sharing knowledge, sharing inspiration, sharing moral support. That is really enormous, and I can't overstate the value of that. Um, so yeah, just people learning from each other, being able to see it. Well, I've talked about time banking in the overview, and we'll come back to that. But one of the things when I learned about time banking, mutual credit, where people are exchanging time very fluidly instead of money, I couldn't believe it was actually happening. And it seemed, at first it seemed so simple and elegant, but then it seems complicated because people all feel confused about how to do it. And then you meet people who are just doing it, and they're regular people like you. And they're nice and they'll answer questions and they'll support your desire to do it. It opened a whole new world to me. And to me, the peer support, and that is what mutual aid is. All the economic tools are really basically ways that we support each other as peers and treat each other as equals living on this earth who all deserve to have a great life while we're living here together. Yeah, so knowledge and peer support, and the fact that these are things people are doing, this is how they're doing it, this is why they're doing it, and here they are to help you do it too and make it easy and fun for you. um, and then we also also looking at really complicated ways of sharing, like maker spaces or fab labs, where there's a commonly owned or curated space where there's high level equipment, high tech equipment, or heavy equipment that requires a lot of training. And people are able to use that space, get the training, and share in that space in a variety of terms. Cooperative ownership is a form of shared ownership, and the common fund, where we pool money, is a form of shared money. But then there's also really simple forms of sharing, like I could share my washer and dryer with other people in the neighborhood. When I first was getting involved in what turned into our version of mutual aid networks, my partners and I went to a currency design course in Findhorn Eco Village in Scotland, which is an incredible place, a great place to learn, a great way to learn, and to see their experiment in their eco village. But the first thing I got to experience, because my luggage was lost, is their boutique. I actually misheard them, and they're saying, "Go to the boutique, go to the boutique and get some clothes." And I was picturing myself having to wear batiks clothes the whole week in Findhorn, Scotland, but they were saying boutique, and it was just a place where people shared their extra clothing or outgrown clothing, and you could just go get free clothing. And they also had shared laundry in the middle of the eco village. And one of the things I liked the best is they had plastic sealed bins of baby clothes for all different, just sorted by age and size. So when you had a baby, you could go get the clothes, use them for the very brief span of time that they fit, wash them and return them. So those simple ways of sharing, I think there's a lot of room for us to get back to those, especially since what we had been taking, or what I grew up taking for granted as sort of a public good, the laundromat, Laundromats are closing like crazy here, and some of us might remember public phones, things of that nature. So getting back into sharing, and like everything else with our version of mutual aid networks and the humans, is we like to the do it ourselves variety, not asking someone else to do it, and not trying to get our city to provide these things and our county to provide those things. We want that to happen too, and we don't need to wait for that. We can use a cooperative structure, a shared ownership structure, a shared governance structure to spring up some community shared resources. Actually, in my neighborhood, not far from where I am, there's one of the old painted signs on the brick that says community laundry. And there hasn't been a community laundry here since I've lived here, but it's worth exploring and maybe reviving some of those old traditions that a lot of us have had. And then we're also doing some experiments with sharing, in our Everywhere Gardens project. So people who have space in their yard, or maybe you've gotten a community garden plot that you're not keeping up, but people who have space, sharing it with people who would like to garden, people who know how to garden, sharing their knowledge with people who don't know how to garden, people sharing their labor and sharing the food that's grown later on. So those are some examples of ways that we're approaching. And then I have a dream project. So other things, like we have a library of things that we're working to create in our space, the Social Justice Center. But one thing that I would really like to create is people realize that we want to have an economy, a society that supports caregivers and care. And the role of caregiving is so important, and it's so neglected and abused and exploited in our culture currently. So I've imagined a situation where we have something like a caregiver commons, where people who are spending their time giving care, could get it. People can feed the commons, and people can just avail themselves of whatever it is. Maybe it's some cash, or some appliances, dishes, baby clothes, diapers. I know that baby supplies have always been a real need. At the we have a little free pantry outside of the Social Justice Center and in the basement there, and we used to have a Time Bank store in Allied Drive, and just a lot of times toiletries and baby supplies are things that people really need. So there's been a lot of work and thought over time put into how to value caregiving in a healthy economic setting. And I know feminists in the 70s were proposing salary for people staying at home and maintaining their home. And I've always been very queasy about the idea of commodifying these things. Like, I am much more interested in not needing money than in getting money for everything. And there's a certain different kind of dependency when you plug everything into the money system that has been invisible to a lot of people. I think people are seeing it more, that version of money is loaned into existence by people who have a lot of it and who are controlling the supply, and they don't necessarily have our best interests at heart, and we don't necessarily want to be in a situation where we're always dependent on their beneficence, because we don't always get it. So I think we need to keep working toward it and expecting that of our fellow humans, but doing the thing ourselves. So yeah, caregiver commons was just a thought that I had at one point, where I was trying to dream up like how to have things very free flowing and feeling very abundant and very shared. And it's an open question, and I guess that's what I like and value about working in this shared knowledge and shared experimentation and shared inspiration context. Is I'm sure plenty of people could come up with better ideas than that, or ways to implement it. And the whole point of the humans sharing uh shared experience, I guess, is to really be creating and embracing the playground where people can really experiment and take some of these principles of how do we value these things without commodifying them? And how can we have it be really free flowing? And how can we be compensated for our time in all these ways without having to like clock in and clock out and log everything, which is another thing people are resistant to. But there are plenty of great answers that people are coming up with and playing with. So to me, again, that's the number one thing to share, and value of sharing is that we can share those experiments. If they fail, it's still a success for the world because we learn from it, and we can apply it differently and share our successes, share the risks from perceived failures, and that's another aspect of sharing our labor and our money and our material wealth, and knowing that we're going to keep connecting based on these core principles, as we can take a little of the pressure off of each other, which is the point ultimately. Take all the pressure off of each other and give people an opportunity to live their highest and best life while they're here.